for you and you alone, giving your body exactly what it needs for optimum health. 3 easy steps in just 90 days. Take the 90-day challenge and make 2019 your best year ever.
The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Hi, this is Faith. Welcome to the Faith Washington Show. We will discuss life, business, leadership, family, and fun, and what happens when your view of the world expands. A wide variety of guests will provide insight on how they do business, family, and leadership in their lives. So now, here's today's show. Thanks, Ken. Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here live. We're on the Faith Washington Show. I'm Faith Washington, and we are live on Facebook, the iHeartRadio app, WWNN. And,
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Don't sweat it. We're
Sorry,
also live on 95.3 FM, 1470 AM, and Periscope. Not that that really matters, but anyway, folks, I have an amazing guest here tonight, and I'm going to do the dance. Her name is Debbie Aldrich. She is a journalist and a broadcaster, and she is such a well-traveled person. She's traveled the globe. She has lived in the Middle East for years. She has been everywhere, and she's an amazing human being. She's a great mom. She has 2 children, a wonderful husband. So she is a mom, wife. She's very curious, and she's an extremely independent thinker. I love that. Needless to say, we really vibe. She's a patriot, and she is hoping to inspire equality and justice. And she is one of the few female entrepreneurs that I've been able to entice to come on my show. And I love female entrepreneurs. I love male entrepreneurs, but it's such a nice thing to have you here and to have you share a little bit about your journey. So give us a little bit about your background.
Well, thank you,
for
Faith.
being here.
Thank
I'm so
you,
excited. You guys can't tell. I'm so
No,
excited.
I'm so excited too. I'm so excited, and we have a mutual friend that should I mention him?
Please.
Bill Brickle.
Bill!
Yeah, I love
Bill!
the global uniter.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is great, and he hooked us up, which is,
Good man.
mean, such an honor to me, and I'm so excited to be here. I've been really looking forward to it. Wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. I'd be in town, remember?
Right.
And it
Right.
worked
There were-
out.
it was-
So I'm
Yeah.
very grateful. Sorry for the phone snafu.
Oh,
it's
stop.
off. I don't
It's
know
okay.
why it
Don't-
did that, but anyway.
Don't worry.
So, gosh, my journey. Well, I told you before the show that one of the things I say to people all the time is I'm kind of like Madonna. I keep reinventing myself. I don't know if that's
We love
actually
that.
a good acronym or not, but
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
like Madonna, but I'm not a big fan of hers. But anyway,
That's okay.
she's
It's all good.
always it's like doing all these different things, like her song Vogue,
Right.
And I do. I think women need to be always reinventing themselves.
Resilient and adaptable.
Yes, adaptable and resilient. Yes.
Resilient and adaptable to whatever is going on. And you know something? That applies to our businesses too.
Yes,
You
it does.
absolutely cannot be stuck in a box. It's
No.
not going to work. So you need to have that flexibility, adaptability, whether you're a female entrepreneur, even if you're in a corporate position. Corporate positions are changing at the speed of light right now. You might not think so, but they are.
They are. The world is changing
Yes.
at lightning speed. If you just think a few years ago, you think even Obama era, things have changed so fast that really, I told you I worked for an airline company for years.
Yes.
And we went through 9/11, and I got furloughed within a month after 9/11, and there was no paycheck waiting for me of back pay, like this last furlough, that took
Yep.
place in January. And I spoke about that a lot. There was no paycheck. I was a single mom with 2 kids. And that's when I think prior to that, somehow in my subconscious, I was always thinking plan B. I didn't know it though, but when that happened, it definitely resonated with me that I've got to have a plan B. I have 2 kids. I had a car payment, mortgage, and my job was gone. And I needed health care. And so
It's a big deal. These
it's
things
a
are
big
and
deal.
the things that you've just stated. I cannot tell you how many women out there right now, right here today, okay, are experiencing those things, and they feel hopeless, and they feel sad, and they feel depressed, and they're like, what do I do? What do I do? You can do a lot
You can
because
do a
we
lot.
have so much power and we're not utilizing it.
And
You
we
could-
can't be afraid.
No.
And we can't be afraid of doing something that
It's
maybe
different, and
that's
maybe not everybody's
different.
going to like it.
Yeah, and maybe it's not what you expected to do, but it could be a different journey. I went after 9/11. I had a friend who told me I should go. I luckily lived near a ski resort in Utah, and I was told they have
Pretty cool.
great. Yeah, it's very cool.
ski.
Raised my kids skiing. That they had great health care, and I should go up there and get a job. And I
Interesting.
went and got a job waiting tables, which I didn't even do in college. I had never had done the waitressing thing that a lot of kids do, or young
Yeah, I
people
definitely
do.
did. I
Going-
did.
Yeah, I never
I
had.
did lots of
so
it.
this was a new chapter in my life. I mean, I know it sounds kind of funny, but the one thing that I
But you
think
were open. You were open to do it.
yes, and I
Willing.
think we have to be open to these things and not too proud. I mean, if you have to put food on the table and feed your children, and you have to dig a ditch, then dig a ditch. We can't be too proud to do things that we have to do. This is the problem, I think, with today with entitlements, so many entitlements, and I never took one entitlement. I'm sure I might have qualified, but I
Probably.
didn't take one. I had a father who basically taught us that if we could walk and we could breathe, we could work.
We could work. Correct. Me too. I did. I grew up the same way. It was pretty much
He was from that generation.
That's
There were
what you
no
do.
real entitlements. You
No.
just do what you had to do.
right.
And his parents went through the Depression.
Yep.
My father became successful, but when he was young, he wanted to go to a military boys' school. His parents couldn't afford it. His father, my grandfather, was a big engineer, had his own company, built the Holland Tunnel and other bridges and tunnels across the eastern seaboard. But when the Depression hit, he lost everything. And he decided he'd better pay his employees, he felt responsible for them,
Yes.
than pay himself.
Correct.
And
I
so
get
they
it.
went without. Luckily, he'd been a World War I veteran and got a job managing the first toll bridge in Maryland, and did that. And he got a little government house, and they couldn't afford anything after that. So my father, believe it or not, if you saw this bridge, you would understand this huge bridge. At 14, was painting that bridge every summer so he could earn money with just a rope. You know, no carabiners, no harness, no, fancy
scary.
ropes. Just a rope.
That's scary.
It scared me when I heard the story.
Wow.
I couldn't imagine my son at 14 doing that. So he could earn money to put himself through a military boys' school,
Love that.
and then went on to college and became an officer in the Air Force. And at one point, my father said to him, when my father became successful, "Hey, Dad, would you like to start a company together again?" And he said, "No way." The responsibility of that generation was so great to care for those they were responsible for, employees, families. He was scared to death to take on that responsibility
Because of what
again.
he'd been through.
Yes.
Because it cost his family so much.
And his
and,
employees.
and his employees too. But you know what?
It was the lesson.
This is something that's beautiful, because this ties in with kind of like one of the things that we were talking about before the show, is that feeling of responsibility and leading by example. I just love Debbie. LBE. I always talk about LBE. You've got to lead by example. You know, who you are being and what you do is who you are. It's how you show up in life. It's your heart. It's your beingness. And it's so incredibly important for success. It allows other people to express themselves in a safe way, in an environment where that kind of hard work and effort and motivation, all those things are going to be recognized. And that's a big deal. So what he saw then and the things that your father and your grandfather did laid that groundwork and foundation for you. You watched it, and look at the way you did your life, and then look at how your kids are. Your kids are just as motivated, strong-willed, and doing successful things because of that foundation.
I do believe it's that foundation. I think the other ingredient is I spent most of my formative years in Europe growing up. The Middle East came later, and my father took us to see everything. We went to all the concentration camps.
Wow.
Auschwitz.
Auschwitz,
Dachau.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, all of them.
Wow.
Normandy. He took us to Omaha Beach. We saw everything. They gave us an education we didn't even realize till we were older that we were getting.
Right.
And we went through, the Balkans, the Eastern Bloc. I don't even know. My father's been gone a long time. And I wish you were around to ask him now that I'm older and understand things better.
Mhm.
Say, what were you thinking taking us through Romania and Czechoslovakia? when
Crazy
we were-"
places
Crazy
that at that
places.
time you probably shouldn't have taken children.
Yeah, so there's been some question. Was my father really gathering intel? We don't know. But the fact of the matter is that taught us to be fearless.
Yes.
And my siblings and I all ended up doing something that was more on a global scale, internationally. My older brother worked for the State Department for many years.
Interesting.
I'm the middle child, and I was the only girl. And I was the first one to go live overseas and work for a company in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia to boot, which is
Female, Saudi Arabia. If any of you don't know, not a good match. And especially a while ago, probably even a little more questionable.
it was.
But you
actu-
did it.
I
that's,
did
that's,
it.
Wait, that's ballsy, girlfriend.
Yeah.
That's ballsy.
I did
love
it.
it.
And what's funny is my older brother was like, what's she doing over there? I always wanted to go and work for the State
Uh-huh.
Department. He took the test and he passed. He ended up in Israel when I was over in Saudi Arabia. I spent 4 years there, traveled the entire region. I lived in a remote part of Saudi down by Yemen,
By Yemen.
not
Yeah.
even
I know
in
the area.
Riyadh. Yeah, so down by Yemen, white woman down by Yemen. So kind of interesting times, but it was an experience I wanted. I look at everything as an opportunity, an experience that I could maybe never have any other way. As
It's an adventure.
It's an
I
adventure.
listen to you, and all I can think of, I look at you and I think, adventure. I see Debbie. I just met her in person. This is the first time I've met her in person. You just remind me of this great adventurer, kind of like Indiana Jones. Yeah.
well, female version, hopefully. Yeah, I don't know if I go that far, but certainly that adventurous spirit and fearless, and that's what my father, I think, instilled in us in doing those things. I went trekking in Nepal. I went to Kenya and
You went to
the
Nepal.
bush. And
How
I
was
took
that?
also supplies. I would ask the embassies, like, what do they need? And kind of take it. And here's the interesting thing, just a little side story here. Both in Africa and in Nepal, the number one thing, they all seem to want these three things: paper, pencils, and water bottles.
Okay,
Their
explain
children
that.
were drawing in the sand to
Okay.
learn their math and their reading,
Right,
or on slate in the Himalayas.
right.
And they wanted water bottles because the water source was so far away to be able to carry it. And most of them had to depend on, say, animal skins, something like that, to carry the water in. In Africa, even native indigenous people were not being allowed to hunt any longer because of poaching and things like
Yes,
that.
yes.
And so now to give them the resources of, say, animal skins to carry the water to make those water bags wasn't as available. So it was very interesting that these were things that they wanted. They wanted pencils
fascinating.
and paper. You think about that. That's to educate their
To
children.
educate. Yeah, because they're thinking of their kids first.
Yeah. Obviously, it would run out. You couldn't take as much as they needed.
Right.
But the desire to learn and to teach their children was really what stood out. And then to be able to carry their water, something to carry their water in that would be more lasting.
Right.
So
Yeah, the animal skins don't last that long. They have to be
No.
tanned and thrown out. They get hard, they crack. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And in Nepal, they were using slate, so they wanted paper and pencil. Took as much as we could. We had Sherpas that could carry. They did hike, and there was never a place that I was afraid to go to, and I think that was instilled in me as a child. So, and I believe I instilled that in my children because both of them have also been to Nepal. My daughter actually climbed Everest. She didn't make it to the summit because
Doesn't matter. She climbed it.
she
She
got
did
to
it.
21,000 feet without
Okay.
oxygen. She was with a climbing team.
Wow.
They worked quite a while. And this was about, I want to say about 6 years ago. She was in her, I think it was her early 20s. My son was even younger. He didn't climb. She took him 2 weeks early so they could have their own adventure, and they went around all over Nepal. And then the climbing team met them, and he was with them for a couple days, and he flew back, and then she went on with them for several weeks to climb.
Oh, she's definitely an adventurer.
Yes, so I think I instilled that in them to be fearless, to reach for the stars, including waiting tables. I mean, and you know what?
That's
I
an
had-
adventure. That's an adventure
It
in and of
was.
itself.
It
Okay.
was.
I can attest to that.
Yeah, it was an adventure, and it was a great experience, and I got a ski pass for my kids, and they
And they learned to ski
and
like
my
crazy.
daughter's number 3 in the world in big cup
Woo! That's pretty
snowboarding.
impressive.
So it paid off
Yes.
in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And you know something, if you had looked back in retrospect and you hadn't gone on those adventures and you'd picked something that was safe or quote unquote what everybody else was doing, you wouldn't have had those experiences. And those experiences are that foundation for our kids, foundation for yourself, for your ability to know, without a shadow of a doubt that you can reinvent yourself. I know without a shadow of a doubt I can reinvent myself tomorrow if I wanted to do something different. And that to me is the empowerment of women. And that's something that we both are passionate about, and we discuss that. It is important. But if you don't have that can-do attitude and thought process, then you're stunted in your growth. You're always holding back.
Yeah, I think it's really important. That is one of the messages which I hope I get through to other women. I know I have with my daughter, but I believe she does that to the women she comes in contact with, that we can't be fearful. We have to be fearless. It's our time. This is our time. We have come so far, and we need to know that whatever door opens, when one closes, I believe
Yes,
in that, another
I
door
agree.
opens.
I agree completely.
And those doors that closed kept leading me to other things. And here I am today, going back to my roots of journalism, now 3 years of doing it, and having so many great opportunities, meeting amazing people like yourself and others around the world. I mean, I've interviewed people from as far away as Albania and Norway and Paris and, and England, all over the world. And that is something that if I had decided to stay in my little comfort zone, probably would not have happened.
You would not have experienced that. But something, maybe something we can discuss is this fearlessness that we have. How do we give that to other people? How do we share that with someone and say, hey, you know what? You do not have to be afraid of anything. You can just go out there and do it. Maybe you fall down a little bit. Maybe you don't get it right the first time. Maybe it's kind of uncomfortable, but nothing worthwhile ever happens in your comfort zone, does it?
You're exactly right, Faith. And I think for young women today, and I think we have to teach this to our young men today, because our young men are being I hate to say, in many ways emasculated
Yeah, I agree.
by the left, by fringe, by the, these subgroups that are telling guys it's not okay to be a man anymore. And I think we want our men to be men and fearless too. We still want them to be respectful of us. That goes without saying.
Absolutely.
And women, we need to encourage them. And you're right. We can't be afraid of falling. We always have to look, okay, plan B. What's plan B? If you fail here, but I think also tap into what's inside of you.
That's the key. That's the key. Because what's inside of you is so much greater than what you're experiencing on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Your spirit, what you came in with, you are love. Okay, it's not that you are loved or that you love. You are love. You are love. You are made of love.
And we all have gifts. We all have gifts and
Correct.
talents. Whether you believe in a creator giving you that or not, we all have this innate desire
Yes.
to do something. So find out what it is that moves you.
That makes you feel fabulous.
Yeah.
Makes you feel happy. Makes you feel joyful. Like, what do you love? Like, write it down on some paper. Take out a couple sheets of paper and spend some time alone and get really clear. If you know that you're love and you start to write from that space and you get quiet, you're going to find some amazing things come out.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to come right out on that paper. They're going to jump out at you.
And parents, when you model that for your children, when you do that for your children, and I told you before the show, I went through a lot over a few years, but I had fun in the journey, even with the ups and downs. And I would tell people, well, there's one thing for sure, because they'd say, what about your kids? You're doing all this, you're working so much, trying to survive. But I had a great time. They were some of the best years I ever had. And my kids, too, I think would say the same thing. I took them camping as a single mother. I took them out in the desert. We went camping together.
Love it.
We did a lot of things together.
I want to know in this moment, what caused you to have so much fun and joy in a really difficult situation? Because there's a world of difference between somebody doing it with joy and love in their heart and somebody who's just trying to keep their head above water. Do you think you could define that for us? Maybe even just a little.
Yeah, well, I think it has to go back to my father's fearless spirit. But the other thing is having faith, and I have faith that I have
Me
a
too.
creator. And number two, I knew there was something more important than myself, and it was my two children. That if I failed, they would fail. If I stayed strong, even before I became a single mom, years before, I wasn't as strong, or I didn't know I was very strong. I was intimidated. I was shy. I was I didn't really know how to be that strong. And my daughter was very young, and I had to go talk to a teacher once. My daughter never gave me a day of trouble. I had to go talk to a teacher once, and I was so afraid I would not be able to, I think she was in second grade, have a conversation, and this is really opening up, have a conversation with this teacher without feeling a little intimidated, without maybe crying, about my child. And then I said, no, I have to show my daughter, even at 7 years old, that her mom can go to an authority person, teacher, and stand there. Now, I had been to college and everything, but it was still a little intimidating. Stand there and talk like an adult to the teacher, and it wasn't going to be a big deal. And that was a light bulb moment for me, one of those aha moments.
It was a shift.
It was a shift that I knew from that moment on that what I did would affect my children and how they would handle conflict, problems. Life will always bring you conflict and problems.
It's normal.
It's normal, part of life. We
It's
can't
normal.
run from it. I wanted to run from it at one time.
can't. You
I
gotta-
wanted the utopian little
Right.
world, but it didn't happen.
Got to embrace it. We
So I
have to
embraced it.
embrace.
And
So
and-
that in that moment when you shifted,
Mhm.
you embraced that fearlessness and said,
I
I'm
can
going
do
to
this.
do this. I can.
can.
I can and I will.
And that was the big shift for me.
That is a huge thing.
It was. And from that moment on, I just knew I had to be the strength and an example that my children deserved and in a parent.
Right.
And so
And-
after that, it was just like
and
we had fun doing it.
So this all carries into the entire course of your life. This carries into your work. You're being thank you, Ken. Being an independent thinker, being able to interview anyone and everyone that comes your way, and being fearless about it. Being able to take on the political venues and things that you discuss, which are pretty high level, folks. Your specialty again is
Foreign policy.
foreign policy, folks. Do you understand foreign policy is not exactly the easiest thing to learn, let alone be a master at it? So,
I'm not a master,
well,
but
well, yeah, that's what you say. Right now. So, all those things being said, it does. It all collects. It all coalesces. Your journey, your path, everything is what you make it. Your thoughts create your world. They create your reality. Even though we know we have a maker, this is just all part of it. And I know we have to go off the air, but Debbie, I just want to thank you so, so very much. Is there one quick line that you'd like to say to the folks? Anything? I just think you're amazing. I think she's amazing.
follow your dreams and your heart.
Yes.
Listen to yourself
Yes.
and be that strength that you
Yes.
are. You have
Absolutely.
inside.
Thank you. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
being
thank
here
you.
tonight. Folks, thank you so much for joining us here on the Faith Washington Show. We are live on Facebook, iHeartRadio app, WWNN, 95.3 FM, 1470 AM, and Periscope. Thank you, folks. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Have a great week. You've been listening and watching The Faith Washington Show, where we have widened your view of the world. Our guests share their business, family, and fun life hacks to make your world better. Hope you've learned something to apply to your life and business.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsor